Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Wherever you are joining us from, thank you for being here today. My name is Abhijit Baduri. I work as a talent strategist and a brand evangelist for organizations. I also work as an executive coach, helping people go through their career transitions and really thinking about how they want to run their lives and their careers, because both are intertwined. I am the author of this book, Career 3.0, which talks about the shifts that are happening in the world of work, workers, and workplaces. And so today's guest is a perfect person to talk to you about exactly this. Now, one of the things that when you look for the guest, you want to find out what is so exciting and what is different about this person. So the thing that I must say is here is a person who has been a wonderful dog lover. She has grown up with dogs, and if you are lucky, you will get to hear the dogs barking in the background. So she has got two lovely dogs who I have met, and they are absolutely great. The second thing about her is that she runs anywhere from 4 to 8 kilometers every day. Yeah. And this is like so bizarre. I cannot even think of somebody doing that, but it's very inspirational because what you can't do inspires you. And the final piece, which really I thought was very unique, I've not heard any of my guests really talk about that, which is she likes to read to the blind. She supports them in their education. She supports different people who are doing that. And she also holds a very important role. She is actually the CEO of SHRM East. We'll find out what East or what. But without any further ado, let me introduce you to my next guest today. Achal, thank you so much for being here. How wonderful to have you on the show. I'm just curious, SHRM stands for Society of Human Resource Management, and now it is just SHRM, is it?
It's easier instead of just a Society of Human Resource Management. Yes, we call it SHRM and or SHRM, and it is SHRM East. East represent India, Asia Pacific, and MENA.
Wow. You know, you've now been with for how many years now you've been running this?
I joined them. SHRM is like my second home. I can say it is like my second birth. I joined them in 2011. And believe it or not, every day I wake up, it is a new day and it is so challenging. I just love it. So that's how I can describe SHRM. But Abhijit, I must say, thank you so much for inviting me to your show. I am most humbled.
No, I mean, I just think that, it's always great to meet leaders who are running complex businesses. You've grown the footprint of SHRM, not just in India, but also, in the Middle East and then also in the rest of Asia. So it's been an incredible journey. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. When you were growing up, what did you want to be? If somebody had asked the 8-year-old, 10-year-old Achal, talk to me about that age or the earliest times when you really thought about a career. Where were you when you were that age?
That's a very interesting question you have asked. Do you think 8-year-old or means at least 8-year-old really know what they want to be? And I come from very average middle class family, and right now I'm in National Capital Region, which is very well known as Delhi. For where you are in US, everybody knows Delhi. India is a prominent country in the world, 5th largest economy. So where I belong, Saharanpur, which is like 150 miles away from Delhi, that I know well. It is famous for the best mangoes. So that is it famous for, and a lot of good woodwork. Now, when you're growing up in that city, I studied in convent, and nuns are very, very strict, So conservative family, brought up in convent school, which is very strict. And all I wanted to do was study and maybe, get married. Like every Indian mother wants to find a good husband and get settled down. That is what is settling down means. But my mother always wanted, I have an older sister. My older sister chose a profession to be a lawyer. And those days, when I was growing up, there were only three professions: to become a doctor, lawyer, or teacher. So my sister decided to be a lawyer. Teacher, I never wanted to be. Somehow the other, I didn't want to be a teacher. So third profession which was left for me was to be a doctor. And fortunately or unfortunately, with 1 billion population, and India is a very, very competitive examination process, I cleared my medical entrance exam. That was not my choice. It was my grandparents and my mother's choice that I want my daughter to be a doctor. I cleared my exam. I went to the college, the medical school. I was there for 6 months. And I was the most miserable person in my life. I packed my bags and I came home. And I said, Mom, I don't want to be a doctor. And in India, the reaction of my mother and my grandmother was 2, 3 slaps on my face. They didn't speak to me. I cried. They cried. My father was very upset. We all live in joint family. Everybody was very upset. But I said, just please, 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 I don't want to be a doctor. And you know how difficult it is to get into a medical entrance in India.
Yes.
And just left it. I didn't even get into the next level of doing BSc, anything to do with science. I did economic honors and English literature. I said, if I start studying science, then again, it would be a pressure, sit for medical exam. I said, nothing doing. I'll never study science in my life. And I changed my entire curriculum and I studied economics.
So, Achal, I want to go back and unpack that a little bit. Where you got into a fairly competitive process of joining medicine, and you actually cleared the examination. You did that for 6 months, and then you decided to abandon it. And where did that courage and conviction come from? Was it courage, or was it that you were so miserable that you just wanted to do anything but that?
I was very scared when I came back home. So I would not call it courage, but I was sure that I didn't want to be a doctor. So that was one thing which was there. I was very hurt. The person I loved the most in my life. And you know, people look for role models outside. I know you will ask me, who is your role model? My role model has always been my mother. I always look up to her. And whatever I am today, it is because of my mother's blessing. And whatever she taught me, that is what I am. But the person I hurt the most at that time was my mother, because she was like heartbroken. But I just said that is what I don't want to be. And I think so she understood that. And my saddest moment is that now I am doing reasonably well. There is a lot more to do and she's no more to see it. But no, it was not courage. It was hurt. It was too much of hurt. But I just didn't want to be a doctor, because I would have never been a good doctor. I would have been miserable. You don't want to do, maybe, means I would have hurt more patients. So it is better to do things which you think you will do well. And I think so my mother understood that. And so did my grandmother and so did my father, because later they understood what I did, what all things which I did I really did very, very well. And they blessed me, and that's why I'm here.
I have no doubt that they would be so proud of you. But, you mentioned Saharanpur is famous for mangoes, but Saharanpur is also famous for cigarettes. ITC, the cigarette company, has perhaps the biggest factory in Saharanpur. Is that correct?
Yes, which is the British Tobacco subsidiary,
Correct,
ITC. And that is where I started my career selling cigarettes, which is again very, a girl starting her career selling cigarettes.
Was that frowned upon in the town, that, what is a girl doing selling cigarettes?
Yes, in a conservative environment, it was frowned upon. And I did get, and again, which was another thing which I said no to. My uncle was very senior officer in ONGC, which is Oil and Natural Gas Commission. And it is a big public sector company.
Yep.
And he decided that because I was reasonably good student and I was a state level hockey player, sports people are given jobs in public sector enterprise. And I was given, due to my uncle's pull, a job in ONGC, and that is the most secured job in Indian context. But I didn't take that job because I didn't want to take any obligation. I would say that I wanted to be Achal, not even Achal Khanna. I said, I will do whatever I want to do on my own. And I walked into ITC office and I told them that I have done economic honors and I would like to do something. I don't know what I will be able to do there. And I still remember a good HR person who interviewed me and he said, we are not hiring right now, but what would you like to do here? I said, I don't know. And those days, not Google days where you could do some research. He said, but you don't even have an experience. I said, if you will not give me experience, how will I ever have experience? And he liked that reply of mine. He gave me his book. He said, okay, we will test you for 3 months. We will give you a temp job and as a commercial assistant. And I said, okay, I am ready to do it. And at that time, there was a job not created. There was an opening which I applied for. And again, there was a test. ITC gave me a first opening in marketing to manage their made for each other brand, which was for Will's Navy Cut. And I managed that brand beautifully. I was promoted in first 1.5 year and I managed that brand across the region.
How long were you there at ITC when you were working there?
I was there for 5.5 years.
Very clearly, it was in the environment which you enjoyed. With other options, which were easier options, you decided not to do that and you sort of had earned your way through into this. What were the things that you learned in this particular role?
ITC was a great learning ground. The first thing I learned was selling. And I realized that I am a natural sales as well as a people person. That is how I managed the Made for Each Other brand. And I managed it really well, not only in city of Saharanpur, but for the entire region, which was like a really, really lovely experience. I learned how to network. I love learning the people skills. Also, I was not in HR, but I learned the great HR practices of that company. They really cared for their employees. And these were some of the multiple skills which I learned in ITC. And also, ITC was a very diverse company. Though their cash cow business was cigarettes, but they had hotel business, they had food business. So you could from other businesses too. And I said, okay, enough is enough. While I was working in ITC, I did my master's in English literature. I simultaneously studied and I wanted to move to Delhi to do my MBA. So I told them, please transfer me to Delhi so that I can do my MBA from FMS or part-time because I didn't want to burden my parents. Already I had hurt them a lot by not doing medical. So I said I will, not that they said that they will not pay for my any tuition or anything. There was never any such kind of a pressure on me.
You wanted to be independent.
I wanted to be independent. So they were processing my papers to transfer me to the hotel division. But in the meantime, those days, all the advertisement used to come in newspapers. And I applied for a job in DuPont. And I was lucky enough to get a job with DuPont to be an executive assistant to the president. And I took that job and it was a whole new world for me.
You gave up being in medicine. You didn't want to do that. You didn't want to take any obligation, even though you could have taken job courtesy your uncle. You didn't want that to happen. You wanted to be on your own and earn your own stripes, so to say. So ITC happened and you learned, I heard two skills that you mentioned. One was selling and the other is networking. A lot of people have little uneasiness about networking, that it means, you just walk up to somebody and say, hello, my name is so-and-so and here is what I want from you. To me, that sounds really creepy. How do you describe networking and why is it so hard? What is the right way to do it?
I would say networking means you use the word creepy. No, it is knowing many people because, to know people, to know about their lives. I would say networking in a different way. When you know people, you know about their lives, you can help them in many ways. You can take help from them in many ways. You can learn from each other. In HR world, you say 70, 20, 10 model. Am I right?
Yes.
So 70, you know it. 20, you learn from each other.
Yeah.
That 20 learning from each other is networking. And 10 is the external learning. That is what is networking all about. Learn from people's life. And that is the best way to learn. You learn from their kids, you learn from their dogs, you learn from their grandmothers, you learn from so many people.
You are actually describing the whole process of networking as being genuinely interested in somebody and going about not just that individual's work-related aspect, but about their lives, about their families, about, much more. The holistic aspect of knowing about a person. And I remember in one of my conversations with a friend, he said something, I think it's there in one of the earlier episodes of the podcast, where he said, networking is about give and take. But in that whole process, give comes before take. That you first give something to that relationship before you even think of taking. That resonates with what you just said.
Also, I would say, Abhijit, that giving gives you much more happiness than taking.
Oh, yeah, without doubt. Yeah. And which is why, I suppose you invest time in reading to people who are visually challenged. That's, I think, fantastic. Okay, so you've now moved to DuPont.
Totally global experience. And though I joined as a executive assistant to the president, and what they were just starting their operations in India, at a very young age, I got a exposure. They were selling through, again, my sales was in my blood, I would say. Selling through distributors. At that time, there was License Raj. So getting government approvals for all their licenses they were taking for manufacturing, for again, some of the products they were selling, as well as all the American companies had an association, which is AmCham. So I would represent my boss during those meetings. And all the joint ventures, which was with Copper, which was with NDDB, National Dairy Development Corporation. So representing, learning with him, because I was managing, it was his calendar as well as managing everything along with him. It was an amazing learning experience. I did that for 2 years, and then he looked at some potential in me and he said, you should not be doing this job. You are so good in sales and communication. I am giving you a sales job, and I was interested in sales. So I launched Teflon and Lycra in India. I was more interested, and then I worked with the Manish Malhotras and Rohit Bals. At that time, they were really, really young
designers. These are some of the biggest fashion designers.
Designer. And I worked with the textile industry on Lycra launch in India, and it was a great product to be launched. And Teflon, is a household name now. So it is an industrial product, but it had to be worked as a consumer product. So it was a great experience.
And Teflon, who doesn't know of it, from the coating on utensils to, well, especially even the mafia uses Teflon. You have Teflon dons who no charge sticks. You seem to have the ability to work with people, and that translates in that function of sales, that it's really around really working with people, trying to explain your point of view, influence their decision, etc. So here is this person who is sharpening that skill. What was the next
move? Yeah, that's right. DuPont was, again, it was a truly global experience, which was really nice. The challenge was there's always when multinationals come, great company. And I got an opportunity to work for Indian company, which is Cosmo Films, which is biaxially oriented polypropylene. And they wanted to set up their international business in India. And I did that extremely well for that work. And I stayed there at DuPont again 5 years and 5.5 years. It was a 5 years itch, And DuPont, the role was getting stagnant. There wasn't any growth happening there. And I was getting frustrated because there were some challenges I don't want to talk on this podcast. And I just thought that I need to move on a bigger role. And that is where I got headhunted in Cosmo Films, which was a small Indian company. And they gave me a great role. And I moved on. And that was a Jaipuria company. And Jaipurias are very, very well known.
Yeah.
And I launched their product across the globe and did exceedingly well. And what I learned, before you ask me, what did you learn there? Indian company, worked for multinational companies. But what I learned, which I could have never learned in the protected environment of ITC as well as DuPont, was how Indian businessman works and its psyche works, is how to make 2 plus 2 into 22, how to make 2 plus 2 into 44, because they really know how to make money and how to collect money from the market, the collection channels. So that Mr. Jaipuria, using his name, taught me. And the independence he gave me to do the business. Once you win the trust, they will give you total freedom. Yes, 2 plus 2 should be 44. And if you can do that, okay, go ahead, run. And I will back you. So
Jaipurias have been into multiple things. I mean, they at some time they had a PepsiCo franchise, so it's multiple things. So what you're saying is, from a very structured environment of DuPont or ITC, large companies which have their own processes, you land up in a family-owned business, Indian family, and what you learn from that is you already had your sales skills, and you actually figured out one of the important elements is how do you grow the business financially. So how do you do that?
I became an entrepreneur and I got an opportunity. They invested in me. They sent me to IIM Ahmedabad to do multiple. There's a 3-tier program.
Yes.
And also because I did so well there, I was awarded as a best woman executive by IIM Ahmedabad. So that also was a big achievement for me when I was with Jaipurias. And after that, because it was Cosmo Films, a headhunter headhunted me thinking I'm working for some kind of film. I was headhunted to work as country head for Polaroid because they thought that I'm in the film business, whereas I was in a packaging business.
Okay. What was that like? I think of Polaroid and I think of instant pictures.
Instant gratification, but no, Polaroid, everybody thinks of instant gratification, but Polaroid is more known, and specifically when you are in US, now, of course, they don't exist. I feel so sad when I'm driving down the Memorial Drive of Boston or Cambridge, because there used to be beautiful office of Polaroid, but they are more known for tamper-proof IDs, and all the driver's license were mostly in each state used to be Polaroid. And in India also we won, which is currently called Telangana, a state driver's license, as well as the Prime Minister's security card used to be Polaroid because it is the most tamper-proof ID made. But yes, even for instant gratification, the cameras were manufactured in Goa, and the first software development center for India actually was set up by me for Polaroid when they started moving into digital cameras. Unfortunately, they were not able to compete and they had to be Chapter 11. In one of the AmCham meetings, I met Scott Bayman of GE, and I was given an opportunity with GE, and I moved to JECIS, which is the back office or service industry business of GE back office operations in India.
And this is also the time when the services boom is happening in India, and he was one of the most successful back office among the many, I would say.
It was the captive GE back office.
So you had that. What was that experience like?
That was a really, really great experience for me because I got to meet the GE officers in US. You would never imagine pitching to people like Bob Wright, who was CEO of NBC Universal, Jim Campbell, who was CEO of Consumer and Industrial, CFO of Steve Sedeta, who was CFO for Consumer and Industrial, Lynn Calpeter, CFO for NBC Universal. So it was a totally new learning experience. How do you pitch?
What are 2 or 3 things that you would recommend to people and how to pitch to a senior executive? What are the things you learned?
They have a very limited span of time. If you are not prepared with your elevated speech, don't even go to them. You need to have your clarity of thinking and tell them what is in it for them. How will you give them the return on investment? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and that's it.
So basically think like the person you're pitching to, and it is not that, this is going to give me a chance to work on ABC. What will it do for the other person? So really being a lot more focused on that. That's powerful. thoughtful, and also I think being very crisp. And I would say that, when you pitch to some of the senior executives, a lot of times, I have seen things go wrong because somebody put a very, very long preamble. Let me walk you through this. Let me walk you through this. That you actually must always start with, I want to propose that we do ABC. These are three things I'm recommending. It's going to cost this much. Here is my reason why. And then you can explain the reasoning rather than the other way around.
Be prepared with the balanced slides, and also be prepared with what is he thinking. Do your proper research. Otherwise, you will be thrown out and you will never get an entry. Even though it is, means we used to go as a external consultants because they don't have time for you. So it was an amazing, amazing experience. They will shut the door on you. You will get frustrated. And also, GE was a very, very competitive company. And session C of GE is very, very well known.
Yeah.
First ranking. Amazing learn.
From GE, where did you go?
It's an interesting, very long journey. From GE, Jekyll's business was sold off and it became Genpact. And then now I started my HR journey, I would say. I was headhunted to head Kelly Services, which was talent, you can call it, hiring and temp. And that would be my shortest stint. Otherwise, it has always been 5 years, more than 5 years, to be very honest with you. GE was around 5.5, 6 years. And in Kelly Services, I was hired as MD, had to start Kelly business because they were losing a lot of money in India. And I joined that company to start the operations, fix the things. And I love fixing things. And I fixed it in flat 1 year, less than 1 year. And I didn't like the culture of the organization. And also I got a chance of doing the senior search business there. And I did really well at the search business because, again, it was the sales in me, because search business is actually selling and you are interacting, again, networking, selling, meeting the right people. And I got a chance of, searching some good candidates for investment banking companies. And they were like really good successes, and where I placed those candidates. And at that time in 2007 or 2008, the entrepreneurial time was happening. And I was advised by one of my friend, why don't you start? You're so good in search. What are you doing in Kelly Services? And in any case, I was not enjoying Kelly Services. Why don't you start on your own? And I said, well, I don't want to do a mom and pop shop. Everybody starts their search business unless and until I get angel funding. So because I did the search for investment bankers, that should not be a problem. So I did get angel funding. I started my own company with angel funding. Did exceedingly well. In 2 years, sold off that company. The deal was that I would be the bonded labor. Company to whom we sold off the company was doing really bad. Fixed that company. I was with that company as a not bonded labor. I really enjoyed.
You had a contract to.
Yeah, I had a contract because it was a milestone. It was a milestone even thing.
Which is very typical when somebody buys off a company, you stabilize the product or the company.
Absolutely. And it was again search, contingency hiring, as well as temp and contracting. And I was sold, and they were in huge losses. The business which was profitable was my business, which was co-achieved. And in that short span of time, we had also signed some big contracts with big multinational companies. And that is why they invested in us. And we did exceedingly well with the company, turned around the company. And I still have a very good relationship with the company who acquired us. It was actually an investment bank which had invested in that company. And so we did very well. And after working with them for almost, again, as I said, 5 years, I was headhunted and sham happened. And when you work for a private equity firm, it really burns you out quarter on quarter, and you are presenting to them this much growth. We meet that. And I was burnt out. And I was telling this headhunter friend of mine, I want a cushy job. First GE, then Kelly, which was not a good stint. And though I did very well in Kelly. And then this own company, you really get burnt out. And then you work for a company which is Indian entrepreneur, not doing well, kind of a uncertain environment. At that time, the downturn happened also, where Lehman Brothers all happened and all. But we sailed through all that and did exceedingly well and grew this company. Now also it is really doing very, very well. And I said, I want like a nice, cushy job. And Sharm happened. And it is like it was in 2011.
Has it been a cushy job? Let me ask you that.
It is a very, very good, challenging job because what I like about Sharm, it is a purpose driven organization. And that is what I really love about Sharm.
What is the purpose of Sharm?
The purpose of Sharm is we influence anything to do with work, worker, workplace. We are a membership driven organization.
How large is that? How many people?
We have 330,000 members, which in 193 countries, which influence 116 million families of professionals across the globe. How beautiful is that?
It is.
We influence the academia world. We give them the right curriculum. We give them the facilitation slides to teach the curriculum right. We influence the student. We influence the early practitioner. We influence the mid-level practitioners, senior practitioners. When they become CHROs or business leaders, then they try to give it back to the society. So the circle is so beautiful.
Yeah.
We do play a strong role in advocacy. We influence the world of government. We tell them what are the right, research for students like who suffer from, who are autistic or who are dyslexic. What are the right kind of jobs for them? Research we do is what are the right jobs for military witness? So when Mission Karam Yogi was launched by Prime Minister Modi to train 22 million bureaucrats in India, we were part of that curriculum.
What did you do for that?
We framed the HR policy for them.
Okay.
So this is a purpose-driven organization. No money, no mission. So we do charge money. I'm not saying that we don't charge for whatever we do, but we are not profit-driven. We are purpose-driven.
So it's a not-for-profit.
Pro bono work. We collaborate with any organization. We never compete.
You talked about working with the government. You also talked about working with academia. Talk to me about some of that.
Like in India, we work with XLRI. They run our classes. We work with...
Really?
Yeah.
That's my alma mater.
Yeah, that's your alma mater. That's why I mentioned that. We not only work with the top schools, but recently we have done a deal today only with Rajagiri Business School. We are giving them the curriculum. We are giving them our certification. And also in MENA region, we invest in translation because we understand and the cultural sensitivities. And we translate it in Arabic. In Japan, we translate it in local Japanese language. In Korea, we are providing the curriculum in local Korean language. Even the examination is available to them in Arabic as well as Korean language. So which organization will invest in these countries in the local languages? Plus, we are sensitive to the local culture and the sensitivities.
How has HR changed over the last few years that you've been heading Sharm?
People are people all over the world. They are the same. We all love empathy. In all organizations, when COVID hit us, HR all of a sudden went up in the eyes of people because all of a sudden we had to work from home, and it was HR which drove the business because CEOs were grappling how will work happen, and HR made it happen. And HR was driving the business because they were able to understand that empathy, mental wellness is the most important thing. And that language HR was able to understand, and they were the media between the CEO and people. How the things have changed in the 60s. I was not born in 60s, sorry, but still I'm mentioning in those times, employee relation was the most important thing. In my ITC days, HR people would spend hours and hours negotiating with the trade unions. But even now, if you look at it in the age of AI or Gen AI, the trade unions are again becoming very, very important, because that is why I'm giving an example. In Vegas, all of a sudden, the unions came up when they thought that all the casinos will be run by robotics, and all of a sudden London, HR was studying ER acts and all those things.
So many of the sectors, you've heard of the Hollywood writers' strike. So that was one example of that. Or, besides, of course, everyone talks about the automobile union or the airlines unions. But
Yeah.
also in some of the other things which don't get as much traction. Gaming is hugely, it's unionized, steel workers. So there are so many industries that one can look at. And it's making a center stage comeback because now there aren't enough people in human resources who have taken up employee relations or labor relations, whatever it might be, as their specialization. So I think you're absolutely spot on. That's going to be big.
I would say what is changed in HR is most of the repeatable, reliable work has been outsourced, but
Right.
most strategic work using the AI tools, HR needs to be on top of it. And HR needs to be more business focused. HR has not been so business focused. They need to be understanding the balance sheets. That is most important for HR for them to get seat on the table. If they do not understand, that is more becoming critical for HR more and more in today's world.
So, therefore, when you propose a salary band, what does it do to the balance sheet of the company? You want to propose an increment or perquisite, you want to sort of, let's say, businesses always look for that. And I think that's one of the pieces when I was in the early stage of my career, that's one of the big misses I had. That I didn't really spend as much time trying to understand how your choices, whether it's an appraisal system, you can start off with any spot. Let's say you want to talk about investing in people. The moment you talk about investing, there is a cost component to it. So somebody from the business is going to say that if I'm going to invest this money in this person, what does it do to the business?
Another important thing is that HR needs to be on top of is ethical use of data, ethical use of anything. Means these days everything is on social, and there has to be very strict social policies because every employee is custodian of their brand. So whatever they are using, whatever tool they are using, it has to be used with highest importance of governance. So HR is custodian of that. Whether it is, I know there are Glassdoor scores, there are all those things where employees are using, but they need to be on top of it, how their Glassdoor scores are, what their employees are doing on social. That is, they need to be aware of all those. They need to be on top of it.
Ethical behavior has been one of those subtexts, just like you see in the screen. You can see I'm reading out, follow her on X at Achal Khanna 1. So this subtext kind of a model, how are you going to gather the data? What will you do with the data? Who owns the data? What is sacrosanct? What will you keep on the records? What will you destroy? What can you hand back? And I think this is one of the pieces, if I really were to make a broad generalization, when people are being taught today about human resources, these are some of the subjects that I think, how do you use artificial intelligence in the workplace when it is content being created? For example, today there are companies which create digital watermarks. So you can say that this has been content which is generated by AI. And even for plagiarism, when people are writing so much and there's so much of plagiarism that happens, you actually have services which talk about how do you measure what's been written by AI, what's been written first with AI, then changed by the human being, what's been first written by the human being and then changed by AI, and what's been only written by the human being. You can actually put it in these 4 buckets. So that very much so.
Now people are even writing books using ChatGPT and
yes. But you can make out.
You can make out. Absolutely. So, I would say, SHRM is again being on forefront because we were the first one who did massive work in partnership with Microsoft on how human intellect plus artificial intelligence can give ROI to the company. Again, human intellect is very, very important, but how to use artificial intelligence with human intellect is important too. And we have made courses around it at early practitioner level, as well as mid-level, as well as senior level, as well as we have made framework around it, which are now being taught to the practitioners. And we will come up with the research as well as more details will follow.
So actually, on your site, I actually like all the white papers that you have access to and
Yes.
great amount of research. I find that very valuable. So when I do a lot of writing, I actually refer back to so much of the white papers and all that. So I find that very useful. And that, since you mentioned human intellect, that explains the slogan that I've seen. I was at a some talent conference in Vegas recently, and I saw this, conversation about AI plus HI, which is artificial intelligence plus human intelligence is really the way forward.
So we are all becoming in this so much of uncertainty, so many wars happening, and we just lost patience. And at workplace, at home, everywhere, we are becoming so incivil. So we have started a campaign. Let's be civil to each other. So 1 million civil conversation. Let's be civil. That's it.
Let's be civil with each other. I want to say thank you so very much. It's been lovely.
Let's be civil and be polite to everybody. Let's be human first.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you.